Welcome to our second video in this web scraping series. Today we're going to be covering the very basics of Beautiful Soup. We're going to go through some simplistic examples with some static HTML code. Then we're going to jump into a real website and take a look at the differences between find as well as find all. We'll expand on find all as well, and I'll show you how you could loop through results. We're also going to go and expand this upon sending data into data frames, cleaning up that data, and exporting it out. I believe there's a total of 25 different examples in this video, so I'm trying to cover a decent amount of use cases for find all, as well as Beautiful Soup. One thing you won't see in this video is selectors. That is going to be in the next video in this series, so that'll be video 3. With this intro out of the way, make sure to grab a Google Colab notebook, and we're going to start coding. All right, let's jump through some coding. So what we're going to do first is import in request, which we covered in the last video, from BS4 import BeautifulSoup, like that. Import pandas as PD, and then import RE. This is going to be for regular expressions, also known as regex. We'll cover that towards the end. Concept that you should pick up if you're going to do a lot of data cleaning. I have a full video here on the channel already talking about regex, so check that out. But yeah, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just paste in some HTML that I generated for this video, because it's going to help explain some of the concepts a little bit earlier. So what I'm going to do is just grab that and then paste this in over here. So what you'll see with this HTML is we're essentially taking a look at running races, right? Let's say there's 50 and 100-mile races on a website, right? All fictitious races. You can see Ryan data races never will exist. Feel free to register that domain. I bet you it doesn't exist, but regardless, the date of the race, right? And essentially all this stuff on here, right? Locations, popular locations of races, Lake Tahoe 200 miler out there. I don't think I'll run that one day. 100's enough. And yeah, so all this information is over here. We're going to grab different parts of it throughout this video. Also, what we're going to do too is, before we jump into that, I'm going to show you how you can grab a website. So what we're going to do is use a classic website for scraping. Now, I would love to use a lot more real world examples on websites to scrape, but to be honest with you, I don't want to have a company take action against the video or YouTube channel. So we're going to use sites like Books to Scrape, because they allow scraping on that side of things. Other websites, they don't necessarily like people scraping their sites, especially if the API is available and things like that. So these concepts can be transferred to other websites as well. But we have Books to Scrape over here. All right, let's start off with part 1. So part 1 is going to be parsing the HTML from Webpage. So part 1, parsing the HTML. And again, all the code will be on my website, so feel free to just grab that if you don't want to copy things over, especially like this HTML. Don't copy that. Just go to my website. All right, so what we're going to do first is get a response. So response equal request dot get URL. And I showed you how to do that last video. And then we'll just write a basic if else, right? So if response status code is 200, page was fetched, otherwise failed to receive the page. Right, I'm going to get a 200 over here. Talked also about some of the different status codes, the other ones you should really pay attention to, primarily like a 403 or 404, right? Not allowed, or 404, the page doesn't exist. But again, check out the other video. All right, so this is where Beautiful Soup now is going to take apart. So we're going to say soup equals, we're going to go in here to Beautiful Soup, right? And we're going to grab the response.text, and then we're going to go over here and go HTML parser, so HTML.parser. And then we're going to also create a soup HTML. And this is just going to be for this over here. So what I'm going to do is just say HTML like that. I did forget one thing, or I made a typo. Just make sure there, HTML. Oh, I misspelled response, that's why. Like, why is it showing up like that? So soup is just going to be our normal website. Soup HTML is just going to be this HTML that I generated above. All right, and just to show you what this looks like, so we're taking a look at the website Books to Scrape, which Let me also show you what that looks like on here. I'm just going to open up in a new tab. It's literally just a basic website like this, kind of just getting you e-com information, which e-com is used a lot on scraping. Real estate e-com are probably the two most popular niches on this side of things. Government websites is another one. But this will be pretty good for e-commerce side of things. And you can use the scraping philosophies here into other places. There's a lot to learn about scraping, though. You can't always use BeautifulSoup. That'll be covered in future videos. But obviously you want to start here if you can, because it's very simple, which is also the reason why it's not used on every website. But regardless, you have a ways to go until then, especially if you're watching this video. Not saying that in a rude way or anything like that. I started with BeautifulSoup as well. But I have both of those on here, right? Just to show you that Soup is grabbing all the information on here, right? So we have all this information from the website, right, on our first page. Now, we'll also talk about scraping multiple pages a little bit later in the series, but we're just going to scrape the main page for now. And you can see all the HTML code is all over here, right? And we're going to be dissecting that throughout this video and also the next video too. So we have that over here. I'm good to go. I'm just going to look over really quick to my reference code. And we're just going to keep going through. All right. So what we're going to take a look at is using Prettify. And actually, it looks like I skipped over an example when I was counting. I have this over here. So I'm going to say use soup.prettify. And what this is going to do is make our code over here a little bit nicer to read. So all you have to do is to print and soup.prettify like that and check it out. So now our code has more indents, right? It's easier to read on this side of things in comparison to the code above, right? I'm not going to go through the code above again, or I should probably just scroll through here, right? So Prettify will allow you to essentially make this nice, right? So there is that. All right. And I'm just going to create another new line. So far showed you Prettify. I also showed you BeautifulSoup HTML. I used the HTML parser over here to grab the HTML code off the website. So we're in a good spot, right? And what we're going to do is move on to our next example. Okay. So this is where you're going to start caring a little bit more, right? That was just kind of the basics. I don't use Prettify that often, but some people like it, so I just wanted to show you that. So we're going to start off with grabbing a page title. We're going to start using my HTML code that I have over here. So let's do that. So all you have to do on here is say soup underscore HTML, right? Because that's the HTML code. I saved it as that. And we're just going to put dot title like this, right? And now we have the title. So ultra running events, and we have title and title on there. Now let's take a look at getting an element like an H2. So we'll say example 5 grab H2. And one thing you'll note also is this only grabs the first H2 on here. There's multiple H2s, but we'll just grab H2. And this goes back to also kind of like find, right? Find will only find you the first time this appears in the code, and find all will go over multiple. We'll cover that in a second, right? Okay, so I showed you how to grab title and H2, but one thing you'll notice is it's wrapped around code, right? So you can see H2, it has a class, and then we have the text, and then we have /H2, right? Title, and the code is over here. So one of the things we like to do when we scrape is just to grab the text. So you can do that with get text. So we'll just do 2 more examples of that. So say example 6, grab page title text, right? And we're going to do this for example 7 as well. And what I will mention is, again, this is not the preferred way to use BeautifulSoup. We'll cover that in a second. So we'll do over here. Well, example 7 is actually going to be a little bit different. So we'll skip over that in a second. But to grab the title on the side of things, right? Page title text, all we're going to do is say dot get text like this. You'll see me use this a lot in this video. And then you can see we just grabbed the text now instead of the code also wrapped around it. Awesome. Now to show you as well, you can specify what H2 that you want. So we're going to say example 7, which is going to be H2 with a class. So you'll find this happening a lot within your HTML code, that there's a class attached, right? So you can see this is a header 2, and there's a class that says section title 50. So So let's grab just the class that is attached to this H2. So you can just go over here and say soup HTML.h2, and let's grab the class, right? Again, this should be H2, not HS. But then you have this over here and section title. Okay, so now what I want to do is talk about find versus find all. And we're going to spend a lot of time on this over here. So let's just grab this over here and I'm going to paste this in. So find, right, is only going to find the first matching element, right? Find all has all the different matches in your code or the website you're scraping, right? And essentially what you'll use find all with quite often is a ton of loops to grab data, whereas find, you're just finding a singular. So I use find all way more in practice than just find, but right, these are two popular techniques when you start getting into web scraping, especially BeautifulSoup, find versus find all. If you're in college or you're in high school and you're learning about web scraping, right, you're probably learning about these as well, find versus find all. So I'm gonna put them in the video for you guys. It doesn't hurt too much. So we'll start off with some find examples. So we'll start off with example 8, find on here. And yeah, so we're going to still use our soup HTML. So we're going to use soup.html. And this is where I was saying, like, it's better just to use find a little bit later than the approach that we were using. I'm just going to say find. We're going to find the H2. And you can see we grabbed the 50-mile races, right? Super, super easy. Also, you can find the text. So we're going to say find with text, right? Because if we want to just grab 50-mile races, you can go over here and just say .get text, .get underscore text, like that, right? This is going to be example 9. And you can see it says 50-mile races. And we can expand upon this as well. So we'll go to example 10. So example 10, we can say find with a class. So we're going to add in another parameter over here. So we're going to say soup.html, find, it shouldn't say dot, I should say underscore. We're going to pass in our H2, and this time we're going to pass in a class. So we're going to say class, and we're going to have an underscore. We're going to say this equals to section title 50, and we're going to say .get text, right? Get text like that, and you can see it gets 50-mile races. Now, I have an H2 with section title 100, so I just changed this up, right? And this is one of the ways that you can specify sections, right? Different classes for these H2s, and this is how we found it, right? It's passing in section title 50 or section title 100, right? Okay, so now we're going to take a look at example 11, which is chain requests. So example 11, which is chain requests. All right, so let's jump into that. So let's say we're going to go soup. Find, we're going to try to find the list items on here. So that's an LI. And by the way, I should say soup HTML. I forgot that. Familiarize yourself with the HTML before learning web scraping. I took an HTML class in high school. I remember a lot of the sides of it. And I also built some websites for a while. My first job actually was an intern helping update websites. So that's kind of my background on it. But if you're jumping into web scraping the first time, you might not be too familiar with websites. So spend maybe a day or two, get some quick refreshers, not refreshers, but some quick insight on, some of the HTML, and then jump back into the series. Okay, so we're looking for list items, and then we're also going to say .find a over here. So essentially what this allows us to do is take a look at the list item, right? Find the first one on that. And then it finds the first anchor tag within the list item. And this is considered a chain request. And you can see a class over here, 50-mile races. And there we go, an href, right? Like that. Again, all fictional on this website. Ryan data races, because no, I'll never be someone that hosts running events. That is not something I'm interested in. Okay, so we're going to also just show a quick example of separating out the chain requests. So separate chain requests. If you don't want to put it all in line, right, request, all you have to do, over here you can say list item equals soup HTML, right, find the first list item, right, we have that there. And then after that, what we're going to do is say list item A equals, and then you just search this list item, right? We're going to say find, and you just find the A. Either approach will work, right? If I just go over here and print that out, see the same exact results. So either works. Like, you can put it all in one line, you can separate them out. I guess it depends on your readability. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pivot. We're going to go into find all, and yeah, let's jump into that. And we're going to start with example 13. I'm just going to find all races. So find all races. And yeah, so we're going to say soup HTML.find all. And we're going to pass in the H2 tag, right? And you can see now that we have multiple H2 tags, right? The 50-mile races and the 100-mile. Whereas if we go above, right, we had to specify the class to get each of those. And when you just did a basic, find, it only got the first example. So doing find all, we can get that, right? Example 14, what we're going to take a look at is specifying, if we want to find the first tag or the second one, which is, again, why I highly recommend just using find all over find, because you can essentially do the same thing with find and find all allows you to grab all the elements, which I personally would rather do. But again, we'll say example 14, find first or second, right? And all you have to do is grab this same code above, and we're going to put an index. So let's say we grab the 0 index, which in Python, we like the first example, right? Because Python starts at 0. And then we go over here to 1, right? And it's the same thing. You can also add in .get text for both of these. I have that in my example code, so I'll just show you that really fast. So you can just put this here at the end. Get text, like that, right? Boom, there's the text over here. We'll do the same thing down below. We'll jump through that example, right? And here we go. So 100-mile races. Awesome. So let's jump into example 15. So we'll do that. So example 15, find all and print out text. So this is going to be through a loop. We're going to say loop, and very, very common to use, right? So race types equals soup HTML.find all. Like, it's super important to know how to loop through stuff on here. It's also super important to know how to export into like a data frame of some sorts. Because that's what you're going to see with real world applications of this, right? The clients that I've had so far with scraping projects on freelancing sites like Upwork, one has me uploading stuff into Google Sheets. Another one wants the Python code where it exports as a data frame, a CSV, so that we could go through it. So again, super important, not only that you have to grab the elements, but how you want to approach it, right? And you're going to use loops all the time on this side of things, for loops. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to say for race in race types, right? We're going to go over here and say print race.getText. And again, if you're not familiar with this, check out my video on for loops. But here we go, 50-mile races and also 100-mile races. All right, we're going to jump into example 16 now. 16, find all with a class. Great. So this is also pretty common. Soup HTML.find all, find all, pass in the paragraph, and we're going to look for class for race date. So race date like that, right? And you'll see that we have race date over here, a highlighted one, race date, race date, race date, and then these are all over here on that side of things, right? Which grabs all the races that are on my fictitious website for racing days. So finding the paragraph tag and then everything with the class race date, and just like that, we got all that information. We can expand on this as well. So this is going to be example 17. So example 17, find all with either class. So you can also specify multiple classes if you want to. I'm going to copy this over here, right? And we're going to say class equals, and we're going to pass in a list. And in over here, we're going to either look at race date or race location. Let's say we want to grab the dates and locations. So we'll say over here, race location, right? We're going to pass that in on this side of things. And now we're grabbing all this. And again, if we want to scroll all the way up to the code, right? you'll see, and just to kind of highlight some of the stuff we've been talking about. If you take a look at this over here, right, we have the race dates, which all of the dates in this HTML have that. And then we have race location, which all of those have that, right? Each section, which we talked about H2, right? H2 100 miler, H2 over here 50-mile races, right? And then we have the list items, which we talked about a little bit earlier. So a lot going on, obviously, but we're just walking through that. It's kind of hard to scroll all the way to the top and back each time we go through some stuff. So hopefully this makes sense, right? Okay, so we're going to look at this next one. We're going to look at example 18 now. 18, which is looking for different attributes. So looks at different attributes, and we're going to go through a few of those. So on this first one, we're going to actually use some pretty similar code to this. So we're just going to start off with this soup find all. We're going to start with paragraph. Then we're going to say at, so at like this. And inside over here, we're going to look at the class. So we still have our class. This time our class is going to be in quotes like that. We're going to say class like that. We're going to put a colon. And then we're looking for any class that has race date or race location. We'll close that out over here. Right? Same thing that we found above. But let's change this up now. Let's look at like href. So we can go over here, attributes, we'll say href. And then we're going to look for different links. We'll say races 50. You do the same thing for races 100. Right. Like that. I have an error. Let me just it should have been A, not P at that side of things, right? And it's getting the text for these links, the 50-mile races and also the 100-mile races, right? href on that side of things. So you can change this up, right? You can also go and look at title. You could look at ID, class, source, alt, type. Like there's a lot that you could change up on these side of things with ATTRS. All right. Now what I want to do over here, let's just go through a few other things. So this is example 19. Search for strings. So I'm going to keep using the find all. So find all like this. We're going to look for an A, which is going to be for a link. I'm going to say string equals, and we're going to look for mountain madness 100. Now it needs to be exactly like this to show, right? And you can see mountain madness 100, which isn't always going to be the case. Right? It should be in a lot of times, but we're going to say example 20, search for strings with regex. And it's going to be very similar, right? So this is just going to look for anything with madness, but we're going to say string equals re.compile. So we're going to go over here and say re.compile and just pass in madness like that, right? And it's still going to find that mountain madness. All right, so now we're going to take a look at parent-sibling child relationships on over here. So it's going to be example 21. Parent, sibling child. Okay. And we're going to look for H3 races. So H3 races equals soup HTML dot find all. We're going to look for H3s. Right. So this is going to just grab all these H3s just to show you what that looks like. Paste that in over here. So the 4 different races, Rocky Mountain 50, Dash 50, Mountain Madness, Endurance Beast 100. All these races were generated by ChatGPT. I'm not that clever to think of these different names. Also, I'm from Florida, so we have no mountains over here, although it would be cool to do some mountain training and an ultra like that. But anyways, let's go into our side of things. So we're going to do a for loop. We're going to say for H3 and H3 races, right? We're going to print the race name. So race name, and we're going to say H3 got text. So H3 get text, right? So that should be pretty basic. But now we're also going to get the next sibling. So we're going to say for sibling in h3 dot find next siblings. I'm going to look for the P. So for there, we're going to print that. We're going to say sibling.getText. Great. So what this is going to do, if I didn't have an error, well, I do have an error. Where is my error at? Oh, I forgot a comma. It's probably my error. Yeah. So you can see like the H3 prints, right, which is the race name. Then what I do is print out a space, which is this over here, and then sibling.getText, so we get the dates and then locations for all those. And this is nicely formatted, right? So that's one way you could use siblings. And again, if we go all the way to the top to show you HTML, right, we get the H3, which is our name, right? And then we grab the paragraphs that are underneath it, right? And you can see we grab the date, then we also grab the location. Awesome. So we're going to scroll all the way down now. And now let's also look at a real site. So again, we're going to look at the books to scrape because we're allowed to use that. And just to show you again, right, that code, we'll just put it down over here, soup.prettify. I also need to put this in a print. I'm not going to go through all that code. Again, we'll explain some of the concepts, but that's just going to be over here. And yeah, so we're going to create some cells underneath it, and let's jump right into it. So give me a second to get ready. All right, so let's look at some real use cases. We're going to go into example 22, find all books on a page. Great. So let's look at that. We're going to say books equals soup.find all. Find all. We're going to go into the article. So article, and we're going to look for the class on here. So class underscore equals product pod. We'll explain the code here in a second, right? And then what I'll do is say for book and books, print book.h3.a, or grab the title. So title like that. And all of the books here are printed, right? So the H3 is going to look for all the H3 tags inside of an article, right? The A extracts the link on that side of things, right? And the title extracts that within the A tag. And if we jump back up over here, right? Or we could inspect element over here, go here to inspect, right? You can see we have article right here, right? Class product pod. Go back over here. We're looking for class product pod. We're looking for article, which I will say when I do a lot of web scraping, I inspect elements quite a lot more than like Prettify. So I prefer that, but regardless, right? So we go in over here, we see product pod, right? We see article. Okay. The next thing we're looking for is the H3. And you can see H3 over here that has set me free, right? You can see I go to H3. So now we open up H3 in here and there's a A, right? So this A is a link and you can see it has the title. It says set me free, right? That set is the title. And we have that, right? So we have, again, we look for article with the class of product pod, right? So that grabs all this information. Then we're looking for the H3 tag, right? Which has set me free. So we have the H3 tag over here, looking for the A, right? And then grabbing the title within A. And that is what this shows, right? Books, we're finding all the articles. We're finding all the class product pod. And then we're going to, on this side of things, find the H3, find the A, which is going to be the title. Show you essentially how to do that. Across over here, we have that. Now, here's the deal. Typically, you aren't just grabbing one thing on a web page, you're grabbing a lot. So we're going to say example 23, grab multiple things at once. Multiple things at once. Let's jump into it. So a lot of this is going to be the same. We're just going to grab different parts of the book, right? So we're going to say for book and books, we're going to still grab the title, right? So we're going to just say title equals this. Title equals book over here, right? Now we're going to grab is the price. So we're going to say price equals book, and we're going to say dot find. Again, I'm going to explain the code in a second. We're going to say find. We're going to look for the paragraph. So paragraph over here. We're going to say class equals price color, and we're going to get text. Get text like that. All right, and it should be class underscore. We're going to get the relative URL, which is going to be book.h3.a, and this time we're grabbing the href. So href like that. We're going to grab the URL, which is the book URL. And this is going to be equal to our general URL plus the relative URL. And if you look again to the site, and I know I'd explain it later, but you can see this is only the relative URL, right? It doesn't give you the whole books.scrape.com/. So that's why we're creating the full URL from it. And again, very, very common when you're scraping e-com sites to get the URL. Customers ask for this all the time. Okay, and lastly, we're just going to do a print statement. So we're going to say print, and I'm honestly just going to copy over my print. I use f-string and everything like that. Knowing me, I'd make an error. So I'm just printing out the title, price, and book URL. One thing to mention, why this is just book.findP on this side of things. So essentially, we're going to the price color, right? And you can see over here, if we go to inspect, right? So we're looking for P class, price color, right? There's only one price per book, so that's why it's fine to do the find. And we're grabbing this price over here, right? Class, price color, the paragraph. And again, we're looking within this individual on the side of things because it's in a for loop, right? For grabbing all the books. So it grabs all the books, right? We get the title, which showed you above, gets the price, which again is in over here. And we get that URL, which again, I showed you is right over here. We just add in the books.scrape.com, which is what we have URL. And I just print all this together and boom, we have that on there. All right, so now let's talk about how we build this into a data frame. So this is gonna be example 24. And honestly, I almost made this into a video in itself, saving data to data frames. I still might do that, but we're gonna say save multiple things to a data frame. So what we're gonna do is just create a data equals, we're gonna have this over here, empty list, and we're just gonna append to it. So we're gonna do is just write a for loop. So honestly, this is gonna essentially be the same. We're just gonna go over here. We're gonna get rid of the print. So we're good there. And then we're gonna say data.append, which use pend all the time. And we're just gonna say title is the title, price is the price, that, and lastly URL is going to be the book URL. All right, all that's going to be stored in the data, but we need to convert that into a data frame. So we're going to say df equals pd.dataframe data, because it's a dictionary right now, right, based off of that. And we go to df. We have this over here, title, price, and URL. One thing you'll note, though, is this price is disgusting. And again, another caveat of scraping. You're going to scrape data. You're going to get something like this. Don't let that stop you, right? Like, you scraped it correctly. You just have to clean it up. So we're going to clean up the data over here. And, you know, you could clean it up in the for loop, or you could clean it up after it's in a data frame. I find it easier to just clean it up after. So we're going to say example 25, clean data frame, right? And a few things we're going to do. We're going to say df price clean. We're going to say this equals to df price. Price, we're going to do a string in place, str.replace. I'm just going to copy in what I'm replacing over here. Because I'll be honest, I don't know how to grab this from the keyboard. So we're replacing this on this side of things. We're just going to say it's nothing, regex is fault. And we're going to convert this as type to a float because we have decimals associated with these prices, like 1746. All right, so we have that side of things. I obviously made an error. It says I don't have price, which is correct because if you go over here, you can see it's capital P. So my mistake. Put price like that. Probably should have had price clean capitalized. Okay, next thing what I do is convert the currency to USD. I'm in America. I'm not in the United Kingdom, so I don't use this currency over here, although once a year, because I do like traveling over to Europe. So let's do an exchange. I prepped this video about a month ago. Exchange rates change all the time, so I could not tell you what the exchange rate is right now. Could I have changed it before the video? Absolutely, but I'm not going to. And the markets have been pretty volatile. But regardless, what we'll do is convert this. We'll say DF over here. We'll say price USD equals DF price clean, which we have over here. We're going to say times the exchange rate. Exchange rate, like that. So we're converting all those over here. And then lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have this present as US dollar. So we're going to say DF price USD, like that. And feel free to change this up for your currency, right? Let's say DF price USD, which I should have had this all lowercase. There we go. We're going to just do apply. We're going to do a basic lambda function, which I've covered lambdas in my Pandas playlist. So we're going to say lambda x, and I'm just going to copy this over here. This code will essentially make these all into dollars. Okay, and then what we'll do is have df final. So let's see, df final equals df, and then we're just going to have our three columns, which is going to be our title, our price USD, price underscore USD, and lastly our URL, like that. URL, long video, guys. Price USD is not an index. Lowercase price. Example code had this in uppercase, but that's okay. All right, so we have that there. And then lastly, we're just going to say df final, and boom, we have the data cleaned up, right? So we have price in USD, title, and then the books. Now, this is only one page, but regardless, like, we made a lot of progress. And lastly, example 26, export as a CSV or XLSX, which is quite common. DF final, man, my typing is great right now. .to CSV, then paste in the name, which you want, which I'm just going to say scraped book data, like that. All right, and again, I could change this also to XLSX, which if you're scraping multiple things, sometimes that's the most common approach, but I use CSV probably more. So, right, CSV file, Excel file, DF final, and just to show you on this side of things, it's not to that, it should be to Excel. There we go. Cool. If we go over here, right, we have these, so you can just download them. And then you have the files on your computer. But yeah, so that's essentially find versus find all. We covered a ton. Again, all this is going to be on the website. It's not going to be a full written article yet. I promise you, over time, I'm going to write these articles, but I'm trying to get the code out for you guys as soon as possible. Again, the biggest thing to pick up on this video is find is only going to allow you to find one thing. Find all allows you to find multiple things. When you use find all, it's very, very common to use a for loop to loop through all the different things that you have been scraping off of a web page. Additionally, it's super common also to use loops to send data into a data frame, because a lot of customers ask for data based around that on data frames. They're not just going to say, grab this from a web page, right? They want to get the data on that side of things. It also showed you the concept of grabbing a relative URL plus also the base URL. Common to see that out in the real world, so make sure that you have that. A lot of experimentation, right? You're gonna have to clean up data on that side of things. I don't get this correct every time right out of the gate, so feel free to experiment with it, right? It's an art. Also, with scraping, there's a lot of different ways to grab information off of the pages. There's not just one correct approach to it. Next video I'm going to show you guys is selectors, and we're going to grab essentially the same data from both the HTML that I generated as well as books to scrape, just using selectors. So if you found this a little bit confusing, right, maybe watch the selectors video next. Maybe it'll click for you, and maybe use selectors instead of find or find all. But regardless, there's a ton still left in this series. And yeah, I think this is it for the coding side of things. Thanks guys for checking out this video on the basics of find versus find all within Beautiful Soup. If you found value in it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Trying our best to upload about 3 videos every single week. Down below, you'll find the code for this video. You'll also see our Discord server. And if you want to continue this playlist, right, that is going to be right over here. Also, I am taking on projects for data scraping. So if you have any interest on that side of things, make sure to reach out. All right, see you guys in another video.